welcome to another in these Route 66 Oral Histories, part of the project undertaken by the Missouri State University Libraries to capture the memories and experiences of people who lived along Route 66 back in the day when it was a federal highway. My name is Tom Peters. I'm the Dean of Library Services at Missouri State University, and today's date is Monday, April 20th, 2015. Our special guest today is Kenneth Estes. Kenneth, welcome.
Thank you.
You are the director of the Southwest Missouri Indian Center here in Springfield, Missouri?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with an easy question. Your name and where you were born.
My name is Kenneth Lee Estes. That's my full name and stuff. And I was born in California, a little bitty. Actually, it says on my birth certificate. It says one place it says Visalia, or not Visalia, but Farmersville, California, a little bitty farming town down there and stuff.
Central Valley? Or,
yeah, it's just around Fresno and Bakersfield and that area and stuff like that.
And then you came to Missouri in 1964 for the first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to school here at Baptist Bible College and went there about a year and a half, something like that. And things didn't work out. I'd been too old. What I mean was I'd been out of school too long. And English wasn't my good subject anyway and stuff. So, but anyway, I met a girl here and we dated here, and we went back out to California. I did, and then she went out there, and then we got married there, and we ended up back here.
So your first trip out here, back here from California, did you travel along Route 66?
Yeah.
What do you remember from that first trip?
It was. I know I had a little Thunderbird, a 1956 Thunderbird. On that back then. No, I take that back. Not that first time. I see the first time. No, I did too, but I did too bring that when there was a little 56 Thunderbird. I know that there in Barstow and stuff, it was real hot there and everything, and then my car had going up this hill, and then there were needles in there going up this hill there, kind of overheated or something, which was normal, they say, because on the top of that was like a filling station, and an old filling station and stuff, and so I pulled over to the side there and went in there, and I said, well, I need some, my car's overheating, I needed some water, and then I said, they said, well, that'd be so much, and I said, what was that? You're selling water? And that's what they were doing back then. They were selling the water. They knew that cars had a trouble going up that hill and stuff like that. So then that was a really experience. So I bought some water and put in my car, and then later on I found out that I forget what that was that's making that hot. It overheated like that. I think it was ended up being the generator or something like that. So I stopped someplace in Texas, I forget what it was, and got I was going to get a generator there, but then I found out that it was it was the regulator, the little regulator type stuff. And so I thought, well, I thought I was buying a new regulator, see, so they put a new regulator. It's supposed to have been a new regulator on there. So I got back here. When I got back here, then I had trouble again because what it was doing, it was frying the battery. It was making the acid and stuff flow out of there and stuff. So anyway, I got back here, and then I had the same problem. I said something's wrong here and stuff. So this guy that I happened to become acquainted with at a garage here and stuff from Nelson's up on North National and stuff. He said, well, it's the regulator. And I said, well, it can't be the regulator. I just bought a new one. He looked at it and he said, no, this is the rebuilt one. He said, so they seen that California tags on there, see, so they thought, well, I'd never be back that way. So that was another experience. I said, oh.
And how old were you when you...
I was in my 20s then. I was in my 20s, about 24. I was born in 1940, so... Okay, 1940. Yeah, so I'm actually, right now, I'm 74. Going on 75.
Okay. So you drove pretty much on Route 66 all the way back?
Yeah. All the way through, there was, let's see, going through Flagstaff up in there, and Needles, and in California, and Albuquerque, Gallup. I went through Gallup. Just trying to remember some of the other ones I went through. Amarillo in Texas.
Right.
And
Oklahoma
from
City.
there, Oklahoma City, drove through Oklahoma City, and went through Tulsa and through Joplin, and came on up this way and stuff. And it was still, it was still pretty well 2 lanes and stuff then.
In '64.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take you? Do you remember? How many days?
Let's see. I was trying to remember the first time I came back here. I think living there in the Bay Area, that's quite a trip from there down into Barstow. That's
right.
like or Needles down there. That's over 300 miles and stuff. So
yeah.
I got kind of a late start, and wanted to really get an earlier one.
Yeah.
So I spent the evening there beside the road and stuff.
You just stayed along the road?
Pretty warm, yeah.
Yeah. So this was August because you were coming back for school? Was it before?
Let's see. I was trying to remember when I came back here at that time. I think it was later than that when I came back to school here. The school had already started, so I got here about maybe it was in September. Let's see, August or September. Could have been August or September when I came back in here.
So it was pretty hot.
Yeah, it was still pretty hot, especially down there in the desert.
Yeah.
So then I couldn't sleep very well because of
So
the
just
heat.
you sleep right along the side of the road.
Yeah. Well, then you could do that. See, you could leave the windows down and the car doors unlocked and stuff. During that time and stuff. It was still pretty safe and everything, which you can't do now.
Yeah, you were traveling alone.
Yeah. I traveled alone when I first came back.
And you're 56. So
and then I was trying to remember where I stopped again, and I'm not too sure. I'm trying to think at that time. I think I drove from there. And I drove twice. See, 2 different times.
Right. 2 years later, you drove back.
Yeah, because I drove back again. On 2 different trips and stuff. I was trying to remember where the 2 different trips where I stopped each time and stuff. Because when I came back the second time, my wife at that time had already been back here, and I pulled a little trailer with that little Thunderbird. So I was trying to remember those trips there. I came the same way.
Where they had
and stopped about the same places too.
So probably about a 3-day trip, maybe, or a 4-day trip.
Well, let's see, 1, 2. Now the first time I think. The first time it was only about a 2-day trip, about a day and a half. But you could make it in less than that time. If you drove right on through. And if you had 2 drivers, it'd be better if you had 2 drivers.
Right.
But driving by yourself and stuff, you get pretty tired and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd stop the least I can, and every time I stopped to get gas or something, I did the necessary things and maybe got something to eat.
Yeah.
So I made one stop to do all 3 things and stuff.
Gas, restroom, and food.
and something to eat.
Yeah.
And
do you remember any of those places where you got food to eat? Do you remember any of them? Anything memorable?
Couple of them were. When I did go by there, I noticed these in Arizona and New Mexico, and I was trying to remember which state that was, but I saw these they were kind of like motels, and they were kind of similar set up like teepees and stuff. But they weren't really teepees. They were small individual like units and stuff that you could.
Yeah, it might have been Holbrook, Arizona, I think.
I went through Holbrook, Arizona. Went through there and stuff, and went through.
So what did you think?
Gallup,
You're Native American.
Yeah.
What nation?
It's a Chickasaw.
Chickasaw. Okay.
Yeah, we're originally from the northern part of Mississippi.
Okay.
Mississippi, Alabama, part of Tennessee, and the little finger that kind of comes down a little bit like is Kentucky. That was our original homeland.
Okay.
Until they moved us in that Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
And we went through. They moved us through Fort Smith. We came through Fort Smith.
So you didn't come down through this northern.
Yeah, the reason that we went through Fort Smith is because it was closer. We ended up in the southeastern part of Oklahoma, where our tribal headquarters is now in Ada, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then the Choctaws are right next to us, so that's where the Chickasaws and Choctaws ended up down in the southeastern part of Oklahoma now.
So as you were coming back in '64 from California, and you see this motel where the units are in the form of teepees as a Chickasaw, what did you think?
At that time, I didn't really, it didn't really bother me or anything and stuff. And I thought, it's just kind of part of the, part of the scene of decor there that they were trying to capitalize on and stuff,
Yeah.
But then I went through Albuquerque too, and I didn't think to stop at Old Town, Albuquerque, but on a couple of trips back to California when my little girl was little, we went back to visit out in California. Of course, the highways have been changed then, and they and there in Albuquerque they put all their wares out on these big these big walkways and stuff, but they're covered, which is Spanish style, and they can be kind of protected back in there. Well, they'll put all their wares down there, and stuff. It's everything from jewelry to blankets they made and baskets and whatever else and stuff. And you can barter with them and stuff.
Yeah.
But I never thought to do that, at that time.
So did you think when you were on 66 that you were on some kind of a special highway, or was it just the way to get from California to Springfield, Missouri?
It was just a way to get. I thought, let's see, this is the most direct way, and so that's what I thought. Well, and some of those, it was pretty country. A lot of those places I went through, up in the northern part of Arizona. People wouldn't think that there'd be snow and stuff up there, but in Flagstaff up there is. It snows up there. And the pines up there, pine trees and stuff. It's really pretty up in the northern part of our Arizona. I was going to say Arkansas, Arizona. And,
was this your first time in Missouri, coming to Missouri?
Yeah, that was my first time I ever come back this way.
You never visited before?
No.
What'd you think of Missouri?
Not Missouri I didn't, but I came back as when we came back to visit my grandparents when they were still alive, and I was only about maybe 8. Let's see. No, I must have come back 2 different times, because I remember one time I was in the house there, and I did something, and my grandmother said, come here, baby. And I put my hands on my hips and I said, I's no baby, I's Kenneth. So
you were too old. In your own mind, you were
yeah,
no longer
I must have been about 2 or 3 years old, something like that. And I's no baby, I's Kenneth. And so, but then later on we came back that same way and stuff with my parents and stuff. And the minute we drove up, I was about 8 or 9 years old then, and I broke out with the measles at the worst time in June or July when it's real hot down there in the southern part of California, Oklahoma. I mean, it's kind of like it is here, the humidity and everything. And the worst time, the worst time, to have the measles.
So as a boy, you must have traveled on Route 66 coming back to visit your
and
grandparents?
that was 60. That had to have been Route 66 too. We took then, both of those times.
Do you have any memories of those boyhood trips?
The only one I remember that we came back and I was trying to remember how many of us is with us. I know my mom and dad and me and about maybe there must have been 6. See, I came from a family that was actually 12 of us.
12 kids.
12 kids, yeah, and two died. One died, a little boy and a little girl. One died before me and one after me. And I didn't know until after I got back here and probably up in my 30s that, I didn't realize that why my mom had treated me different than the rest of the kids. And then I said, oh, I know why now, And she was closer to me than she was the rest of the kids and stuff, But when they moved out there, my folks moved out there, I'm not sure I don't know whether Route 66 was built at that time, because they moved out there in 1938.
It would have been about the time it was being paved. It was officially commissioned in 26, but it took a while to pave it. And it was into the 30s before they had it completely paved. But it would have been a
pretty rough
route, partly gravel or dirt even. But
my mom and dad and my 2 older brothers and sister would have been on that trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, because later on I seen after they got to Oklahoma, because back here at that time, they had the Dust Bowl, and then they had
Yeah, is that what motivated them to move to California?
And in the 20s, the Depression and
Great
stuff.
Depression.
There was no work back here.
Yeah.
And that's the old saying is, here comes the Okies.
Yeah.
Okies in California.
So your parents were part of that Okie migration to California.
Yeah, they were. And in fact, somewhere my brother, one of my brothers, has a picture of my folks in a tent down there, where they lived in a tent, and they came there to work in the orchards and vineyards and stuff, to make ends meet and stuff. And the grapes of what was that? The grapes of
Wrath.
The grapes of wrath. My dad was an extra in there, but we couldn't pick him. We couldn't pick him out in there.
Oh, really? So he's in the film?
Yeah, he was in that film as an extra in there.
Which I think was done in '39. 39 or 40.
Something like that. Yeah.
So it must have been soon after they got out there that he was.
Probably been 39, because I was born in 1940, and they moved from wherever they were at from there on up. Well, I say that because they could have still been in that same area, that little bitty town called Farmersville.
So they worked in the orchards and the fields?
Yeah.
Just like in the movie?
Yeah.
And the book?
Yeah.
Did you work in the fields at all when you were growing up? Or?
Well, later on I did, later on when I was probably up in, but at that time they had moved up to, moved on up into Oakland, and my dad was a bus driver there. And I take that back. Before that, he worked in the shipyards.
Yeah, Oakland shipyards.
Oakland shipyards, which is no longer there.
Yeah.
They worked in Oakland shipyards because they were building those
during the war.
During the war, they were building those what are they called, Liberty ships. They were building them just as fast as they could. I mean, they were putting them out. I don't know how fast they put them out, but they did a tremendous job on putting them out for cargo ships and stuff. And out there in called Suisun Bay out there in California, it's Suisun Reserve. They still had some of those old cargo ships, and they pulled some of them out and used them in Vietnam.
Really?
Yeah, and kind of refitted them and stuff. And they take them from there to in the Bay Area, from there into Hawaii first, and then from Hawaii they go to I guess maybe one of the other islands and stuff, but they broke down, because they were so old, and stuff,
Do you have any memories of those shipyard days when your dad was working in the shipyards and you were living in Oakland?
No, not really, because I was pretty little then. But then we moved there. We moved from there. He became a bus driver after working in the shipyards. He worked as a utility guy, where he would learn how to splice cable and stuff like that and stuff, and hook them up and stuff, for the cranes and stuff. Then we moved over to Concord, Concord, California, and which is it's a pretty good sized little town now, probably about the size of Springfield now. And then I went to school there. I remember going to school there, and I think I was in the first grade. I think it was elementary or kindergarten or first grade. I think it was the first grade when I worked there. Went there.
Yeah.
And then from there we moved over into Vallejo, California. Vallejo. Really, it's Spanish, named after the last governor and General D. Vallejo, out there. And he was the last governor there too, of Spanish or Mexican governor.
Territory.
Yeah. And that was the town was named after him.
Yeah.
And I get tickled up. People call. They said, "Where did you live?" And they say, "Valley Joe." And I said, "What? Valley Joe? What?" No, that's why they pronounce it back here. I said, "No, that's Vallejo. It's actually Vallejo.
Yeah.
It's what they pronounce it out there is Vallejo.
Yeah.
Like San Jose, they call it San Jose. They call it San Jose here." And I said, "What? San what? San Jose?" I said, "No, it's San Jose." And a lot of the towns out there, they pronounce them different ways. I never and I get a kick out of them calling like Kearney up here. Well, I think that was named after that colonel that was over in Kansas, and his name was Kearney.
Yeah.
Kearney. Yeah. It's odd how different areas of the country, how they pronounce things
Yeah.
and stuff. You know.
Well, Bolivar, I believe, is named for the South American General Bolivar.
Yeah, French, yeah.
Bolivar.
Yeah. Bolivar, yeah. And it's just like, what's this other little town over here called Bodarc?
Yeah.
It's actually, I think it's Boris d'Arc. I think it's like French, I think.
yeah.
So evidently the French had been in this area too at one time,
Yeah.
I guess, you know. And I know that depending on what part of the country that you're in, like up around the lakes, there'll be a lot of French names up there, and some of the, I know that some of the Native American Indians that lived up that way, they'll have French last names and stuff, you know, which was kind of common because the trappers would intermarry with some of the tribes, and then they would have their last name and stuff.
Right.
Which before you didn't have a last name, you know,
Right.
because you didn't need a last name, right? Because you didn't have to carry papers around or documents and stuff to say who you were and stuff
Yeah.
like that, you know.
So back to when your family came back from California to visit your grandparents in southeast Oklahoma, you must have gone on 66, but you don't have any recollection of...
When I was little...
They would have been pre-air conditioning and...
Oh, that's what I was going to say. In the car.
Hot times in the car. Yeah.
No, we had, okay. This was they have the model of this panel Chevy van, the panels. No windows on the side except for ones in the doors, okay? So it's hotter than blazes in there, and there's probably at least, there must have been 6 of us kids in there, I believe,
Yeah.
you know, counting myself. I think
Yeah.
there was 6, and 3 or 4 of them were born later, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, how my dad had it kind of made that cool in there is that I seen one of these not too long ago. It was kind of like what they call like a swamp cooler. It's where it's got water in it and it trickles down, you know, on the sides and stuff, and then the fan blows against it and stuff. Well, that works all right in California and in the dry areas and stuff, you know, like Arizona and New Mexico. But back here, it just adds to the humidity. It just makes it worse. It's like, whew, man, you know, and that's quite an experience as with the humidity back here, you know, and even in Oklahoma. But on the way back here, we had one that was like kind of like a torpedo. It sat in the window, and the window, you know, it would scoop up the air and blow against that, and you'd put water in there, and it had kind of it was like strips of wood that they had in there, and kind of like in a filter in there, and then you could put water in that tank, and it'd blow against that, and it would make it kind of cool in there.
Yeah.
Well, that worked all right, you know, and I can remember us. Dad says we thought about, well, we're getting hungry, and we took a lot of our own provisions, like
Stop and have a picnic.
yeah, we'd stop along the road and have a picnic and stuff. And then I remember my dad getting out and getting the fire started. And we had a skillet, big old cast iron skillet, and we made some fried potatoes. And we didn't eat high on the hog, you know, but we ate, you know, fried potatoes, and we had some fruit that we taken with us and stuff too.
Yeah.
You know.
So this would have been late 40s, early 50s, maybe?
It had to been at that time that had to been in the 40s.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the 50s I'd already been 10 years old, and so it would have been
You were less than 10, younger than 10.
48 or 49. But I do remember that.
Yeah.
Those places.
You ever think about the traffic back in 48 and 49? Did it seem like there was a lot of traffic on the road?
Not to my recollection. Not really a whole lot. It doesn't seem to be that there was a whole lot.
Okay.
You know, but as you got closer to the towns, they would be.
Yeah. Any memories of where'd you sleep? Did you sleep by the side of the road, or just
No, we slept inside. Oh, but in that panel truck we had another car. It was a car seat out of another car that we had back in there, and some of us slept in back behind it, and then we brought our own blankets and pillows and stuff like that and stuff. And we just slept in the
van.
Slept in the van, and my dad he tried to drive as much as he could and stuff. And usually he said it was cooler at night, so he would probably drive at night and maybe try to sleep a little bit during the day a little bit. And we'd pull over to the side of the road they would, don't wake Dad. He's trying to take a nap. He's trying to sleep.
Was he the only driver?
Yeah. Could you imagine? My mom never did drive. She never did drive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She went to when she was down there in Oklahoma with her mom and dad. That she went to an Indian boarding school called Bloomfield Seminary, and later on called Carter Seminary. And I've even got a picture somewhere here of her in that of her in that school and stuff. And then she was taught just sometime back when she was still alive, and I didn't think to ask her a lot of other things. I asked her, what did they teach you there? And she said, well, they taught us, being as it was a girls' boarding school for girls only, they taught us English and math and home economics and stuff. But anyway, that's where she went to school and stuff down there and stuff. So she was pretty familiar with and my dad, that's where he was born and raised down in Oklahoma too, down in there. And
yeah.
So, yeah, both of them were.
Did they ever talk as you got older about that leaving Oklahoma for California and their experiences?
At that time, I wasn't born then at that time, but
later on, did they ever talk about the old days and the first migration?
So I do remember that my dad said one time that he was when he was a kid, I guess. I'm not sure what age he was at that time, but he said he saw one time somebody got out of line there in town. He saw the sheriff there beat somebody, one of the guys with a pistol whipped him,
Really?
And then later on, he said he saw, I don't know if it was Bonnie and Clyde or it was Bonnie and Clyde or was it Dillinger came through town there, and he saw them, and I can't remember which one it was now.
Yeah.
And maybe it was Babyface Nelson. One of the three of them came through there. I can't remember now. I was trying to remember which one that was. And he said, I'm not sure that was him, but they came in that old car, and they kind of roved in down in that area. And it was pretty common for them to be down in Joplin and parts of Texas and Oklahoma and stuff. All three of them.
Yeah.
Hiding out and down in that area.
When were your parents born?
I'm not really sure. Oh, my mom was born in 1912, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, 1912, 1914, something like that.
Your dad about the same time?
1912, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were both born down in Oklahoma. And stuff.
Oklahoma had just recently become a state then.
Yeah,
it was a pretty young
yeah,
state.
it hadn't been a state very long, and then lo and behold, I think it was in 19? I was trying to remember what year that was. Oh man, I should know that. When they bestowed Native American Indians citizenship. So I thought, oh well, then I think it was 1920 or 26. And my mom, so I said, well, then my mom wasn't a citizen in her own country then, born and raised here, and she wasn't a citizen. I said that doesn't make. I think I'm not sure that was 1926, and that was because of the Native American Indians that fought in World War I. And because then they decided to bestow citizenship upon them, and because of that stuff. A lot of history that and a lot of that, it was on Route 66 too. A lot of that,
Yeah.
a lot of those things happened, So,
Yeah. A lot of troop movements during the war, and POW camps, and
Yeah, and a lot of those, what do they call those? A lot of those things that they built too during that same
internment camps.
Well, what do they call it? WPA.
WPA.
Yeah, WPA. They built a lot of
Projects,
stuff during that time too, and I imagine that's where the Route 66 part of that had come from too and stuff.
Yeah. So back to your life in the '60s. So you were back and forth on route between Missouri and California a number of times.
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
Late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah, and then went back in the not in the 30s though. I wasn't born yet.
No, I mean in your 20s and 30s. When you were 20.
My.
Your late 20s and your early 30s.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. I wasn't born back then. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
This would have been the 60s and.
Yeah, I and went on I think the roads were they weren't on the Route 66 at that time. I went back on a couple of trips on the buses, the Greyhound, and took my little girl there. You know, we went on Greyhound and Trailsway, two different times. Boy, that was an experience.
Yeah, tell us about that. So you were on 66 going to California on a bus.
On buses, it was yeah. It was quite an experience, you know. All kinds of people on the bus and everything. Yeah, and I said, so anyway, I said, well, took my little girl, you know, and I said,
how old was she?
She wasn't but about 3 years old at that time.
So she wasn't a baby anymore.
No, she wasn't a baby, you know. I said, so once. Well, I mean, I don't know what I'd say, should even say that. But usually, I mean, back then, I guess people were still kind of trustable and stuff. But still, when we stopped at the rest stops and stuff, I always made sure that I stood outside the restroom, that when she went in there, and I tried to get somebody on the bus, one woman, I said, could you go in there with her?
Right.
And stuff. And then the other thing, we carried a can of Lysol with us. I said, spray this on the stool. And wipe it off and then sit down, you know. So be careful.
Yeah.
You know, just be careful, you know. And I would wait till she'd come back out, and, you know, and I'd always kind of, I don't know, kind of pair up with some woman that was in there so that, and my little girl, when she's little, she's always kind of, you know, talkative anyway, and when people on the bus,
she likes people.
You know, she'd like people, you know, and stuff. But anyway, then she would pick out somebody that she was kind of friendly with, and I said, well, could you watch her while she's in there? And she said, sure. Yeah. And then we'd get back on the bus and take off and stuff.
Yeah. Any other memories about those bus trips back to California? The buses generally stop at regular places.
I tell you what, they stopped every place. They stopped at every little nook and cranny on the way out there, so we'll never get out there. That's about a 2-day trip.
It was a slow ride.
Oh, yeah, and nothing to eat on. Of course, you don't have anything to eat on the bus unless you get some snacks wherever you stop.
Right.
Then you could eat there and stuff. You know, and I can remember that a couple of times, one time the bus driver says, I smelled something, he said, and that's not legal. He said, that whoever's doing that needs to put it out, or I'm going to put you out here in the middle of the desert.
Smelling
marijuana.
Marijuana, huh?
He said, somebody's smoking back there.
So this is the mid-'60s?
Yeah, he says, okay. I can smell that. He said, and that's not legal. Then, you know, and he said, I forget, he said, not in the interstate, was it federal, would be, well, being as they're interstate, it'd be federal offense. And so he said, I'll put you out here, wherever that is, I'll put you out here alongside the road in the desert. And some of those buses weren't so much of the cleanest, you know, but they would try to clean them at each stop a little bit, you know. Yeah. But they, and I remember one time I was but we always used to kind of sit in the back, so then that way we could watch everybody, see, and nobody's kind of not too many people behind you and stuff, so you could see what was going on, you know, and stuff. So anyway, I can remember one time there was somebody got finished drinking a pop out of a can that kept rolling up and down the aisle, and he said, "But somebody get back there, you know, get that can." And I said, "Well, I'll get it, but it wasn't me." I said, "I'll get the can, but it wasn't me." So I went down.
So the bus goes all night long too, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, and then one time, I forget, one of those trips, I'm trying to remember which one that was. I think it was Greyhound, this one here. And we, from Springfield, we got down into some little town I believe it was in Oklahoma, and we're talking about 1 o'clock in the morning. And this little bitty town, they rolled up the streets and everything. There wasn't nobody there, nothing, no lights on except for the street lights. We ran out of gas.
In the
bus? Yeah, ran out of gas. And I said, well, ain't this dandy? And all of us, and we're talking about, this was in the summer, June and July, and it's hot down there, see. You know, you can imagine what it'd be like here, too, at that same time. Well, it was hot. You know, it must have been up in around in the upper 90s or maybe hundreds there at that time.
Even late at night.
Yeah, late at night, and he said, well, no air conditioning, everybody had to get out. He said, well, it'd be cooler if everybody got out. So we all got out and stuff, milling around, and there was more of us in that bus than there was in that town. So the population
This doubled, huh?
doubled or tripled at that time. I still can't remember what little town that was. But they used to stop in a lot of those little bitty towns like that, you know, to pick up people and stuff. They'd let them know ahead of time, I guess, some way, because they didn't have intercoms or anything like that, or phones that they could say, well, you got to stop at such and such and pick up these passengers and stuff. You know, some way they knew ahead of time who to pick up and stuff, had the schedule and stuff. So anyway, so he flagged there's another bus that drove on by, and he said, well, he flagged him down and said, so he said, send somebody back here with some gas. So they come back with a 5-gallon gas can. Well, 5 gallons in a big bus, it just primed it. And here we are, we're sitting there, they're standing out there at night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and here as we get down the line, we're about an hour and a half late, you know, the schedule and stuff. And he said, well, I'll try to make up some of that. Boy, and after he put they went down and got another 5 gallons and put in there, and we drove to the nearest fill station, and then he filled up enough to get to the next place. And boy, he was mad because somebody had not checked the gas.
Yeah.
You know.
I never heard of a bus.
Diesel, man. We ran out of gas. Yeah, we
never heard of a bus running.
We ran out of gas, you know, run out of diesel. But anyway, so we ended up getting some more, and then we went to the next stop. And so he says, well, I'm gonna try to make this part of this up, and maybe the next guy, the driver, can make up some too. But I mean, tell you, we rolled, and I mean, we rolled. I mean, between 70 and 80 miles an hour.
Was this still 2-lane or 4-lane highway?
You know, at that time, I was trying to think of what that was, because we pulled off so many times of the main part there. I say it must have been a 4-lane at that time.
Yeah.
Must have been a 4-lane.
You were moving.
But you know, at the same time, when I came back here the first time, I came in on Sunshine, and Sunshine wasn't completely done.
That's all right.
Well, I hear my dog barking in the back.
Yeah, Sweet Pea will be part of the...
Yeah, some people ask me what her name was, and I said, well, Sweet Pea, sometimes. He's barking.
So let me ask you, you know, Route 66 has become almost like a myth now. You know, it's just become this worldwide iconic road.
66.
Yeah. And for most people, when I think when they think of traveling Route 66, they think of a middle-class white couple, family.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like discriminated against as a Native American?
What do you mean, coming back or something?
Traveling on the road. Do you ever feel like you were treated differently?
Not really, because at that time I didn't spend much time, you know, I'd get a hamburger or something to eat in the car.
Yeah.
You know, or eat it on still driving and stuff, you know. Just stop and get gas, and just as soon as I got gas, then it took off again. You know?
Yeah, you were traveling, you weren't really a tourist.
No. But you know, I do remember now coming in through Carthage, so that was Route 66, and came through, you know, let's see, down here to Halltown where 44 kind of makes that curve and goes up a little bit, or there's a road that goes underneath that. Well, if you take off to the right, that goes back up into Carthage and stuff back that way. And that's the way I remember now coming through. I came through that way.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I-44 wasn't completely done at that time.
Okay.
You know, because why would I have come that way?
Yeah.
You know, so they didn't have all of it. I don't believe all of it was done.
I don't think it was until the 80s, early 80s, that they finished the whole interstate.
When I came back here, it was 64, so it wasn't all done.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I came in, I drove in and come down Sunshine, and Sunshine, they were still working on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a 4-lane and, well, actually 5 lanes with the middle lane, turn lane.
Yeah.
And they didn't have all the curbs and cutters and stuff. They were still working on Sunshine when I first came back here.
Yeah.
Stuff, you know. And I tell you what, it was an eye opener when I went to school the first winter. I like a froze back here. You know, being in the Bay Area, you know,
Yeah,
and there in the Bay Area, well, it's they say that it's about the average temperature is around 59 degrees right there in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Now we're not talking about up in the valleys or something where it gets up 100 or something
Right.
like that, you know.
Right.
And you could go over the foothills there from the Bay Area and stuff and get into the Sacramento and San Joaquin Valley, and it'd be 100 degrees or 105 there in the shade, and that's but it's a different it's a dry heat. It's a different the climate's different and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and don't have all the humidity and stuff, you know.
No snow.
And then no snow in that area. But one thing that I kind of miss about living there in the Bay Area is, you know, in a matter of just a little bit that you can be at the beach, or you go up in the mountains in the wintertime, you know, and mess around in the snow or whatever. The Squaw Valley is only a couple hours drive from there and stuff. You can go up there where a Donner Pass, where it was 27 feet deep at times, you know, and the snow and so it's I kind of miss all of that. But here, it took me a while to get used to all the different, you know, the climate and everything here and stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well, Sweet Pea's got her spot.
Yeah, she's got her spot now. But she still looks out the. She
She's
still looks
a
out that door. So
She's
she
a good
gets-
watchdog.
Yeah, she's a. I had cancer about 5 years ago, and she's my service dog. She's helped me get through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she's a good companion and stuff. You know, and,
So you spent, you were, how old were you when you came out here? It must have been 24, 25?
yeah, I was 24.
24 when you
Yeah,
first came
24
here.
when I first came here.
So you spent your first 24 years of your life in California,
Yeah.
more or less. And then you were kind of back and forth for a few years, got married.
Yeah, I came back to school and I made 2 trips. Let's see, when I did the first time, and around Christmas time I went back out there. I drove back out there and stayed about a week or so and then came back.
Drove your own car.
Yeah, and then drove back again out there after school was out.
So you must have been up
I
and
made
down
about
60.
I made about 6 trips, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you stayed, then you settled into Springfield and
Yeah.
spent the rest
I've
of
been
your
here,
life.
Yeah, since.
So far, the rest of your life.
Yeah. But it's Springfield. When I first came back here, it was Springfield was more like a big little cow town, what I kind of considered. You know, it's, because a lot of it was farming. A lot of farming. MFA was big around here. You know, had the mills and the slaughterhouse out there, and so on and so forth, and
Dairy farming was
dairy.
big.
A lot of dairy farming was big here in the area and stuff. You know, and it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
Got a lot of different people moving in from different places of the country that they find out that Missouri, you know, Springfield in particular, is kind of still kind of got that small town atmosphere, but yet it's bigger, you know. And I think that it's kind of losing a lot of that too,
Yeah.
which is really kind of sad, you know. Which now you can't leave your car doors open,
Yeah.
unlocked.
Yeah.
Can't leave the windows down, you know, if it's real hot and stuff, if you park in a parking lot,
Yeah.
you know, and gotta lock everything up and hide it, you
Yeah.
know, and it's sad, you know, really sad.
Now, did you start the Southwest Missouri Indian Center?
No, I got in when it was formed in September the 28th, 1976.
Oh.
And I got involved with it in 1977.
Oh,
I'd already
okay.
been involved. Already been in existence for a year,
Uh-huh.
and I've been involved with it ever since then.
Yeah.
It's one capacity or another.
Yeah.
Just as a member, and later on as a board member a couple of times, and as the in the past as maybe the office manager director, and then came back this second time and to be the director here for 18 years. You know.
How many members do you have, roughly?
And it's it varies. We there's probably 30 to 40 families that we, like clients, our clients, you know, every month there's 30 to 40 of them. But then you times that times 3 or 4, then that's over 100 and around 120 people or so. But there's probably in the Springfield area, there's at least, I'd say there's a couple of hundred, 200-300, you know. But they're just scattered out, all, you know, just, and then around the smaller towns there's some there too, here and there and stuff.
Native Americans.
Yeah, Native Americans that,
Yeah.
you know, but
Do you think, how did they all come to settle here in southwest Missouri? Do you think there was...
see, I'm not really, some of them were born here, and then some of them moved from Oklahoma, moved up here.
Moved back.
Or their parents moved in here.
Moved east from Oklahoma.
Yeah, and then some of them were from up north, you know, the Dakotas, and moved down here. And it's an eye-opening when they move here, though.
Yeah.
It's really an eye-opener, because they said there's no Indian Health Services here, IHS services.
Yeah.
There's no BIA office, Bureau of Indian Affairs. We call them bosses Indians around. And there's no Indian housing here. See, so none of those facilities or none of that stuff. And there is no tribes as a tribe here in the state of Missouri or Arkansas, either one. When they, you know, I was telling you about that Indian law where they moved them all out.
Yeah.
And you know, the Osage and the Caddo that originally in this area, down in this area, were down here. And then up north it'd be the Missouri Oto and maybe a couple other little tribes up there.
Yeah.
And around Kansas City,
Right.
in that area.
Right.
You know.
And they moved them all west. And
Moved them all into Oklahoma and Kansas, which
Right.
they said was Indian territory. I think at one time originally Missouri was part of that Indian territory at one time.
I believe you're right.
And then
actually,
Arkansas,
southwest Missouri and western Missouri were
Yeah.
Indian territory.
Cat. A cat is or a dog. A dog that shoots by here, and if that door was open, she'd be on them. She's fearless. The little weenie dogs, they're fearless.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And well, they bred them over in Germany to go in the holes after badgers.
Yeah.
You know, so they had the little short legs, you know, and short bodies, so they could go down in there, and their little legs, they don't set up like this, they set back.
Yeah.
So to get to those legs, they got to get past this mouth, you know, and I know we're getting off track here, but the other little one I had, Stretch, I mean, the little male silver Napa one I had, now he could take black walnuts, believe it or not, and just pop them in two. And we got to take a hammer, and that's how he did with his back jaws. And I said, man, they've got some powerful jaws back there. And he would chew it up and spit it out, but he wouldn't eat them.
Oh.
But he liked to chew them up, you know, and spit them out. And I said, oh man, what the, you know?
So powerful
and
jaw.
yeah, they like to chew on stuff too. You got to be careful. As they're coming up, you got to teach them not what to chew on, what not to, and stuff, because they'll be chewing on your shoes and everything else and stuff.
So the Native American population in southwest Missouri really, they just had to, they had to integrate basically. You just had to find a place to live, and
yeah, I had to, you know, and I've there's been a number of people that I've heard say, well, and the old stereotype kind of like is that Native American Indians were nomads, especially here in the Plains area. And I said, oh, no. They weren't nomads, because if they were nomads, then the people who live in New York that in the wintertime go down to Florida, then they're nomads, or they're not, right? You know? And the ones who go out to Arizona and New Mexico in the summertime, then, and Phoenix and that stuff down there, well, then the people, then they're nomads, aren't they? I said, no, they had to go wherever the best place where they could do the hunting and the climate. They would change, you know. But now some I would say most of your, as far as I know and everything I've read and everything, most of your Indians east of the Mississippi were more permanent in their places where they had them, you know, where they were camped and stuff. And but they may have even at that time may have even had winter camps and summer camps, you know, or towns. Now, I know I know that the Chickasaw, Choctaws, and the Creek had what they call towns down there. Instead of they didn't call them villages, they were towns. That's what they call them and stuff, you know. And anyway, that's the those three particular tribes that I know had what they had called towns, and they were permanent areas where they lived and stuff.
Yeah.
Permanent areas and stuff.
So the Chickasaws in Mississippi and Tennessee, probably far enough south that they could have a town. And
Well, see, when they were moved during that time, by the Trail of Tears that came through up here in Springfield and stuff, at that time they had towns. They had real towns. You know, they had their own police and sheriffs and whatever you call them, and judges and so on and stuff, and they had adopted quite a bit of the colonist stuff that they, you know, they're kind of like, because they knew that they were, the more and more of them were coming from Europe, and they were going to have to, before too long, they were going to have to live with them, along with them and stuff like that, get along with them and stuff. So they kind of tried to keep their own culture and everything, but at the same time tried to maybe to not assimilate with them, but to try to say, well, you know, this came up in before Jackson's time. Andrew Jackson, the one who made them move. It was I was trying to remember the one before him, Jefferson, I think it was. The one, I think it was Jefferson, as one who was kind of said we need to move them out because they got all these people are coming down, you know, further and further down into the southeastern states and stuff, you know, Virginia and down into Carolinas,
crossing the
Georgia and stuff, you know, and so they just use that as an excuse to, well, we need to move all these people out, you know, which was really sad, really sad in our history and stuff. You know, that Trail of Tears and stuff. They moved quite a few Indians during that period of time, more than just those 5 tribes, what they called the 5 civilized tribes, and that's why they called them 5 civilized tribes, because they had their own towns and their own language and stuff, you know, and of course the Cherokee had their written language and stuff, you know, and they had their own, well, in fact, they even had their own plantation. They had slaves too, because they were mimicking what the colonists had, you know, and plantations and slaves and so on and stuff. And it's probably, that part is probably kind of sad in the Indian history too, you know, but they were trying to mimic the colonists that were coming down, you know, and say, well, then maybe they will move us then, you know, because then we will kind of be like that. We've got some of the same things that they do, that they have and stuff, which didn't work.
Yeah, assimilation.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for speaking with us today.
Yeah, I thank you too. I hope it did. You know, Route 66 is. I remember eating at the Route 66, the hamburger place up here.
Oh, Red's Giant Hamburger.
Red's Hamburger. Yeah. I ate up there a number
back in the
of times.
60s.
Yeah, when I was back here, I ate there, and then Casper's Chili's that used to be over there on south, right in front of Aunt Martha's pancake
Glenstone.
house.
Yeah.
And I ate there too at Casper's, the one that was originally there in that hut there. I ate there a couple of times, and good chili. Had good chili. I can say that. And then Red's, boy, you couldn't beat one of them hamburgers. Great big old greasy hamburger. And I said, now this is a hamburger here, boy. You know, and I'd see him back there frying it, you know. And I'd go in there and sit down and
he and his wife pretty much ran the place, right?
Now I didn't see his wife, but I seen him back there cooking and stuff, you know. And I said, well, man, these are good hamburgers. Had all the trimmings and stuff on there, lettuce and tomato, big slices of tomatoes and onions, you know, and lots of lettuce, and you could put whatever you wanted to on it, you know. And I said, man, these are good. And then later on, they had some other what was the name of that other place? They had about 5 or 6 places here in town, and they were noted for having what was it? Chicken fried steak. What was the name of their? They were up on Kearney Street. Had one there, and Fisher's High Boy. I remember that when I came back here.
Trish's?
Fisher's High Boy. Okay. I remember that. They had one in St. Louis, one over on the corner of Glenstone and Glenstone and Glenstone and Sunshine. Yeah, Glenstone. No, Battlefield. Was that Sunshine? No, it was Sunshine too. And I remember when they had Safeway was back here too at that time. Safeway stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I came back here.
Big in California, not so big.
Oh yeah, they were big in California. In fact, their big warehouse and stuff like that is in Oakland. And stuff. And then when you drive through Oakland, coming through there, you can smell the tomatoes. You know, their ketchup, Hunt's and Heinz and Del Monte's, all three of them doing the canning there and stuff. And see, that's where that came from. That they would bring all those fruits and vegetables and stuff in there and make all different kinds of canned goods and stuff out of them and stuff. You know.
Did you ever work in a cannery?
No, I never worked in one there. But I did work in the orchards there for a while and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
I remember picking prunes, and they call it prune pickers. That's what they call it. Were you a California prune picker? That's an old saying. They used to call them California prune pickers. But they'd pick prune. We picked prunes and picked peaches and stuff. And I picked the peaches, and I said, well, you got to be careful of the peaches. You get that fuzz down your neck, on your hands, and maybe you scratch your neck or something for something, or wipe your forehead, and then you got all that fuzz on it, and then it itches. See, in the summertime. Now it would get hot there in the Bay Area in Vallejo, California. Now it'd be, but say if it was in the 80s and 90s, then that was hot. That was hot there. But most of the time you wouldn't even have to have antifreeze in your car or worry about it freezing or anything like that and stuff. And like I say, when I came back here, it was a real eye-opening the first winter. And
when you were picking prunes, and peaches, did you get paid by the hour or by the bushel?
We could get paid either way. We could get paid by the hour, or by the field lugs that they call them. We could get, and now they don't even have field lugs. They got big old great big old things that they use for the forklift and stuff.
Right.
And I remember one time when we was waiting on our ride. This woman had this old 47, 48 Chevy, 4 doors. The 2 back doors were suicide doors, they call them. She piled in about, there must have been 8 of us or so in there, maybe more than that. About 6 kids and then her, and we paid her for driving up there. This was in Vallejo, California, up into Fairfield, which is about 15 to 20 miles from there, in Vacaville, and that's where the orchards was that we go up there and pick. So they made arrangements, and they did assign you a number. But then at that time, you had to be a certain age. You had to have a permit from the USDA if you were under a certain age. Like if you were under 15, you had to have a certain permit to pick there. So,
Were you under 15 when you first picked?
Yeah. And I actually helped my brother, and then we carried a sack lunch, a brown paper sack lunch up there with us and stuff, and she'd drop us off there, and then she'd go to another field and drop some other kids off with her, or she would pick it at that other field and stuff.
Would you go home every night, or would you stay up there?
Yeah, no, we came home every afternoon.
Yeah.
Because it's about 5 o'clock, we'd head back home. Yeah, and I remember one time in the field, these guys got behind this field. We was waiting on her. Got behind this field. I started throwing prunes at it. So we said, well, wait a minute now. They're asking for it. So we started throwing the prunes back. So we can't use too many out of these boxes now. Because these are the boxes we picked,
Right.
So we'd take some out of this box and some out of that box. And the way you kept track is that you had a number or a letter that you put on those field boxes. So when they come in with a tractor and picked them up, and then the guy who was riding there, then they would figure out who picked them. And my brother, let's see, I forget what it was now. We could make, I was trying to make it was 75 cents or $1 an hour. We could work for 75 cents or $1 an hour. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to work by the lug, because we get paid more that way. And he made more money. Me helping him, we made more money that way than it was by the hour. Because then, hour, if you got paid by the hour, there wasn't any quotums you had to do or anything.
Right, you weren't motivated.
Weren't motivated. But if we picked by the field lug, then the more field lugs that we filled up, the better we got paid. The more we got paid.
Well, thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure.